What is up, fellow Age Groupies? Welcome back to another episode of the Age Groupies podcast, part of the United WeCast Network. I am Mike Ergo, and along with my co-host Lindsay Hyken, we're here to talk to you about all things related to endurance sports from an amateur athlete perspective. We talk about how to have fun along the way and make this sport a little less intimidating. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hyken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas, email us, agegroupies@gmail.com. And if you guys enjoy the show, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's guest is my coach, Nick Carling. Nick Carling is the head coach of Team Carling at Cairns, Australia. He's a pretty savage dude. Not only has he gotten first in his age group, 2016 Ironman 70.3 Vietnam, but he's also racked up a first place finish in his age group, 2014 Ironman 70.3 Cairns. First overall 2015 Great Barrier Reef Half Marathon. First overall 2019 Townsville Half Marathon. The dude has racked up a ton of wins. He's been in a ton of races. And, pretty cool, fun fact, he's ranked number one, male 30 to 34 in Australia for Team Australia ITU team. That was in 2019. I've known Nick for 5 years now. I've never met him in person, but this dude has coached me for my first Ironman in 2017. He coached me up through Kona the first time. He coached me up through another couple full Ironmans in Santa Rosa. And guess what? He's going to coach me up to Kona this year. So it is my pleasure to introduce Nick Carling. Nick, welcome to Age Groupies, man. It's good to finally have you on the show. How you doing?
Well, firstly, I've got to give you a g'day, mate, because I'm down under guest, obviously. So, yeah, better give you the typical Aussie greeting. But, yeah, I'm really good, Mike. I'm really pleased to be here and chatting with you. So, thanks for having me.
That's cool, man. So it's where you coming to the end of the summer, coming into fall now?
Oh, no, we're full on into summer at the moment. So I live in tropical North Queensland. So our summer is pretty extreme. It's quite humid. Yeah, it's quite hot at the moment. So we're about sort of mid 30 degrees Celsius with some high humidity. So around 80% at the moment. So it's pretty hot at the moment. But yeah, we'll probably get another, 3 to 4 weeks time and probably start seeing our wet season start. So that's usually where we spend a few weeks of crazy downpours, which sort of wets everything around here and does a bit of flooding up here and can cause a little bit of drama with, cyclones and things like that. But yeah, it's all exciting as long as no one gets hurt and there's not too much drama in the way of, destruction of properties and things like that. Like we've seen, obviously, a little bit down south with all the fires. So yeah, it's pretty hot at the moment.
God, you guys have some extreme things going on. Floods, fires, crocodiles, extreme humidity. So no wonder you guys thrive in triathlon, because you're like, oh, this is old hat, man. There's no natural disasters happening.
That's why you see all the best pro athletes are from Australia. They're all tough as nails.
Hey, I don't doubt it, man. I've seen them out there.
Yeah, no, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger anyway. So it's it just adds to the elements.
That's true. So, I mean, like I said, it's awesome to have you on the show. We've been working together for a few years now, which is awesome. And I wanted to know a little bit about you and for our listeners, how you got into the sport and then how you got into coaching after.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, it's probably, a good 11 years ago or so now. I was actually working out on a dive boat in North Queensland here when I sort of first moved up here, and I was playing a bit of Aussie rules football at the time, and I had two mates who were working with just out in the boats there, where you always used to like to take the piss out of each other and spur each other on to do silly things. And one day it sort of came about that we'd see who the fittest person was. So a massive trophy was up for grabs. So I was all in on it because it was a slab of Jim Beam at the time for the winner.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was signed up. I didn't care what the event was. So at that time I was pretty keen on the drink. So we sort of planned this little multi-sport race, which was a triathlon, and never heard of a triathlon before, never seen one before, and obviously never did one. So yeah, we kind of plotted up this little course where it started on the beach, and it was a beach run for about 3 or 4 kilometers or so. And then we'd jump into the pool and knock out a K in the pool, which was unheard of for me because I've never really swum before that.
Yeah. Wow.
And then, our bikes were there at the pool, and then we had to race back to the finish point on the bike. And that was my absolute first ever race that I did, and first ever triathlon or multi-sport event that I did. I fueled up on some barbecue potato chips before the race and threw them up in the pool, so that was really cool.
That's classic nutrition for triathlon, so that's good.
Yeah, that's right. And we had a good crew, so all the other staff members from some of the other boats came along and were cheering us on as well. So we had a nice little fan club there, and I won that. I won the Jim Beam. I was all on the line for that, absolutely. And that was my first ever triathlon and first ever trophy, actually. And to this day, it's still the best trophy I've ever won. So I was pretty rapt about that.
That's a
number
awesome
of years
way to
later,
get in the sport.
A number of years later, I got to the end of working on the dive boats there, and got a little bit over to the tourism industry at that point, and decided to leave the boats. And pretty much that same week, I stumbled upon a personal training course. So I thought I'd sign up for that, and always sort of liked the health and fitness industry, but didn't sort of do anything about it early to that. So went along and did that course, and studied for that, full time for 6 months. And through that, I was fortunate enough to be given a job as a personal trainer before I was even qualified, just working at a studio there. And a couple of my colleagues, they were just getting amongst one of the local triathlon events that was up here in Cairns, and they needed a runner, and they knew that I was, fairly fit from my football days. So they asked me if I wanted to be part of a relay team for triathlon. It was a sprint distance, so we had a swimmer doing the 750 swim, we had a cyclist doing the 20k bike, and I'd knock out the 5k run. So I jumped in on that, and went along and just had the most amazing time. I'd never experienced anything like it. It was all about ball sports, through my whole childhood and leading up to I was about sort of mid-20s. And to get amongst this atmosphere, it was nothing that I'd experienced before, and it was just absolutely awesome. The environment, all the people, everyone was so friendly. Like, everyone was so competitive during the race, but before and post race, everyone was just getting around each other, and it was just such a great environment. It was such a great experience, and it just gave me a little taste. I thought, seeing these guys, and I thought, God, they're so fast. Maybe I'll never catch those guys, but I wouldn't mind having a crack and doing this myself and see if I can do all 3 legs. So kind of my sort of career, I guess, or my journey started from there. And it's funny because I try and motivate so many people or inspire people to just even try and, hook up in a relay team and get amongst the sport by that.
Oh, the relay's the best hook to get somebody into the sport, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The amount of people that I've sort of steered or motivated to get into a relay and then gone on to do their own full triathlon is, it's pretty awesome. It's a good feeling, and there's so many people get into the sport like that, which is great to see. So eventually I ended up just, going out and getting a bike and started training. Just obviously had no idea what I was doing, but just gotten to the pool a couple of times. I think I was training in my 10-meter tropical pool that I had in our apartment complex.
Nice.
And just kind of got into it like that. And one thing kind of led to another after a couple of years, and I was helping a charity ride with a bit of promotion on social media, and I just invited everyone on my Facebook feed, and one of those happened to be my uncle, Dr. Trevor Chakudi at the time, and I hadn't spoken to him for at least 6 or 7 years prior to that point. And it's not like I personally invited him, but he ended up sending me a message, said, "Oh, sorry, I can't make it," and blah blah. And from there, we just kind of got chatting, and I told him that I was getting into a bit of triathlon, and I hadn't realised prior to that he was a triathlon coach, or that he'd done triathlons himself.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and so it just kind of happened by chance that we stumbled upon each other once again, and from that point, he took me on and said he'd guide me through and train me up to do my first Ironman. So, well, it was actually a challenge event, the first one that I ever did. So basically, it was announced, late 2010 that Challenge Cairns, it was called back then. It was a full distance, so 3.8k swim, 180k bike, 42k run. I know you guys talk in miles, but
yeah, we'll get out our calculators out here and figure it out.
Yeah, that's right. So that one popped around, and I said to my partner at the time, I'd love to do this. Like, this looks awesome. And she told me that there'd be absolutely no chance that I'll be able to achieve it. So of course, my little competitive switch just turned, and I was like, screw this, I'm going to give this a crack. Right. And then Trev, he coached me up, and we spent, I think, 5 to 6 months training for that event, 6 days a week, 1 session a day, and all under the Maffetone Method, and got it done, and absolutely loved it, and thought, wow, this is actually really cool. This is a great environment. I could see myself doing this a little bit longer and a bit more competitively. And then, it's been a hell of a whirlwind after that.
Well, can I ask you about that? Was there a certain moment where you knew this was your sport? I mean, there was a certain point in time you can point to, besides like hoisting that big gym beam over your head?
Yeah, at that point I wasn't really fussed about triathlon. It was more about how many cans can I drink that night. But I'm not too sure, to be honest. Like, I know the feeling after having ticked that event off, and and it's kind of been with me like the whole time. Like, I've never ever sort of self-doubted myself. I've always believed I can achieve anything if I put my mind to it, and that was the same with that iron distance, that Challenge Cairns. I never really doubted that I'd be able to achieve it, but once I did achieve it, and once I had experienced what it was, and just how grueling that one day can be, there was something about it that really stuck with me. It was just a great feeling. It was an amazing feeling having that medal put around your neck after such a long day at the office. But not only the long day, but it's that 5 to 6 month journey that you went on to get to that moment. And so that was really cool. I wasn't sure. I was probably not thinking so much along the competitive lines at that stage, but I knew I wanted to keep doing this and see, where I could take myself. And having just gone through that and that whole, which you might touch on a bit later, that whole training experience was a lot different to what I was sort of brought up with our sort of Aussie rules kind of mentality, where it's a lot of high intensity work. So it was a complete shift in training methodology. But in doing that, I'd set myself up with a really strong fitness level, and I took that into just some local races that were amongst here, and suddenly, just out of nowhere, it's these guys that I saw at the start, when I first started these events, they were miles ahead, and I thought, wow, they're incredible. Suddenly I was up there and I was racing against them, and I was starting to beat some of them, and it just sort of came out of nowhere. And that was really exciting. And I thought, wow, okay, this is really cool. I'm gonna have to keep going. It was really cool. Like, it was a great feeling, knowing that, we're obviously on the right path, and we'd set up this beautiful methodology, and the training structure was working, and my body was just responding to this type of activity. But I was just loving it too. Like, the day to day, that's probably what I love the most. It's probably not so much the races, but it's the lifestyle that the training brings. And if you can really sort of enjoy that day-to-day grind, it definitely helps with your consistency and achieving those events, or achieving those results. That makes sense,
because that's like 99% of it, right? You have race day for one day, but the rest of it is like the training. It's like getting up every single morning.
Yep.
Yeah, making it happen.
It's all about the lifestyle. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Mike, did I ever tell you about the time I went to a popular cycling studio and it was super bizarre? I was dressed like regular scumbag trainer clothes, and everyone else had on, matching Lululemon, full face of makeup, and the instructor kept yelling, "Ladies, let's dance," which I had no idea what she was talking about. I was like,
that's so weird.
Let's dance. Are we riding? Anyway, that all happened because I was trying to maintain cycling fitness during the winter.
Yeah, winter months are tough. Days are shorter. It's cold. It's rainy. takes a lot of extra time to gear up, and a lot of those rides are going to get canceled anyways because it's going to be too dangerous outside. Anyways, I spent a lot of my time indoors training, even during the summer months, just because I got small kids and I want to get this training done early. I also love group classes, but I spend majority of my time training alone in my garage. That can be pretty boring. So we have a way for our listeners to make that training during the off season or during the winter months or whenever you want really exciting. CycleCast app provides studio quality classes for both indoor cycling and running.
Awesome. Who needs to see a bunch of other weirdos on spin bikes anyways? We need an instructor who has an ear for music that will get us hammering those pedals and a ride plan that keeps us engaged during long trainer sessions.
Yes, I finally tried it, and it's exactly what I got from CycleCast. So they use music through your phone in this app, which works for Android. It works for iOS, so it doesn't matter what kind of phone you have. It uses minimal data, minimal battery power, and it's your phone. You bring it everywhere you go. So you got classes from different instructors at different lengths. It doesn't matter what time of day or night you're doing it. You can do it all on your own schedule.
That's awesome. Plus, the running programs are both indoor and outdoor, which is huge for me as I train for Trans Rockies this year. I'm doing a combination of treadmill and trail, and the treadmill is about as exciting as the trainer. So this is definitely helping me make those sessions more engaging. And as our gift to Age Groupies listeners, we have an awesome promo. Go to cyclecast.com/activate and enter the code GROUPIES to get a 30-day free trial on top of the regular 7-day free trial. That's like 5 weeks of free stuff, y'all. That's cyclecast.com/activate, CYCLECAST. Don't forget to use the promo code GROUPIES, GROUPIES. Cyclecast. You're going to love where this app takes you.
So obviously, yeah, it was great to start getting some sort of local results. And but at the end of the day, you know, there was a moment, and I wouldn't be able to tell you when that was, but there was a moment where I thought I'd love to turn pro. If I can already achieve these goals, or you know, be racing these local competitive athletes already, you know, what's 2 to 3 years dedication going to get me? And so we set some goals around that. And then, yeah, it's kind of a bit of a long sort of journey ever since. Still trying to achieve that at the moment.
Yeah. So at a certain point you got into coaching. Did it start by just, you know, having people ask you, hey, I'm doing my first triathlon, what should I do? And informally before you became a coach professionally like that?
Yeah. So I was working as a personal trainer for the first few years or so. And then it was sort of mid 2012 or sort of the back end of 2012 potentially, where I was training was in Phuket at the time. And it's just the best, still to this day, the best race I've ever done in my life, the best destination. So I was training for this event at the time, and I was doing some personal training, so one-on-one sessions each week with this guy called Warwick. Yeah, there was this one PT session one day, and you know, we're talking about what I was doing, and I said, "Oh yeah, I've got about 4 months, and I'm heading off to Thailand, so I'm just training for this triathlon at the moment." And I jokingly said to him, "You should do it. I'll train you. I'll write your program. You should go do it." And he comes back the following week, and he signed up.
And you're like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, I guess we got to figure out a training plan for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of just happened from there. I wrote him a program leading up to it, and he was my first test dummy, I guess. And he went there and he came along with me. We had the most amazing time on that trip, and he did an amazing job for someone who's never done a triathlon before. And he went there and he smashed it and loved it. And you know, suddenly he whacked it on social media or something like that, and a few people sort of caught wind of it. And I was having a discussion with him one time, and just post race, I think, and we thought, wow, imagine how cool it would be if we could get a group of, you know, 6 to 7 people together and sort of train a couple of times a week together and work towards events and that. So we put out this idea, and we sort of drew it up a little bit and launched it January 2013. And you know, I was expecting 5 to 6 people, and suddenly we had, you know, I think 25.
Oh wow!
Jumped in straight away.
Scaled up pretty quick.
Oh shit! Yes. So, so yeah, it's kind of it kind of just exploded at that point. People just loved the concept of what we were going to do, and from there, it's just been the most incredible experience, and it's absolutely changed my life for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you've been coaching for a while now, and what are some of the moments that you enjoy as a coach when you see, you athletes come under your wing. What really makes you inspired to continue coaching?
You get a mixture of things. So there's obviously the race day stuff, and the race day stuff is obviously really special because you spend 5-6 months or so working with this athlete for a particular event, and they'll go through ups and downs, and they'll go through issues, and there might be great times, and there might be times you got to kick him in the ass and all this kind of stuff. And there's this massive journey that we go on together, and working towards something specific. And then it's I don't know, like it's not really them finishing the event, and it's not me sort of being excited about that in particular, because you always have this belief in them that they can achieve that anyway, and it's kind of not surprising in a way if they do achieve a PB, or they get a podium, or they finish an Ironman or something like that. Like,
you can see it even if they can't. Their potential probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, so anything they kind of achieve, like, it's not really much of a surprise to me. So I don't get excited really by that. But it's the enjoyment, and it's the way that they're smiling after the race, and it's the way they're posting their social media posts and all that kind of stuff, and they're hugging their family, and they're crying on down the finish line. It's moments like that really hit you hard. Because for me, it's so sort of normal, because it's, I do this all the time. I've been doing it for a long time. I do it myself. And I do know what people go through, but, a lot of people go through a lot of stuff that, through their lives, their family put a lot of time and effort into that, and they make a lot of sacrifices. They're getting up ridiculously early in the morning, going to work at 9 till 5, and then training again in the evening, and then going and looking after the kids and putting them to bed. And then it's just nuts what people do for their sport, and to keep themselves healthy and do something that they love. And it's the combination of all the stresses that they go through, and then seeing them so happy at the end because they've achieved something pretty special, which obviously means something to them. They're pretty special moments. Absolutely. You always get some people sort of messaging you after a race, or maybe a day or two after, once they've had a chance to reflect, post event, and obviously those messages that sort of really hit home as well. You don't ever expect thanks. You don't expect to be, talked about, or you don't want them sort of posting about you on social media. I don't care about any of that kind of stuff. I just want them to be happy. And if I can see them happy, not only through the journey, but, especially, after a race, then that means the world to me. Absolutely. And then, on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis, to give you a couple of ideas, you'd be working with an athlete on their run cadence, for example, and they've been struggling with a really low cadence, and they keep dropping out in the back end of their runs, and you just really hone in on them you spend 2 to 3 months just absolutely kicking their butt on it almost every single session, and then suddenly you get to this point 2 or 3 months later where it's all just coming naturally to them, and it all just clicks. And then you see in these sessions, and
that's got to be such a cool feeling as a coach to see that I don't know if it's an epiphany for them, or finally it's muscle memory and they just click into it, like you said.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Just to see them, you'll spend some time even just working on their run technique, and you can see how confused they get, or swim technique or bike technique, all the same sort of stuff. And you can see the frustration they go through over the first couple of months or so if it's fairly new to them. But eventually you'll just see them one day and they'll just be looking absolutely sensational, and it's just finally all clicked for them. And they're pretty special moments, absolutely. And you get messages all the time with athletes going, "Oh, I just did a 1K PB in my swim," or just things like that. "Oh, look how good my cadence is in this session." That stuff is really cool. Like, it's just the little things like that is what I really love about coaching.
It's empowering stuff, and I can relate, to the stuff you've worked with me personally on, like cadence and running form, and it's interesting because it really frustrating to have to kind of relearn something, I've been doing for a while, and, go through that process where your brain has to really think so hard through every step, and it feels unnatural, but it's so worth it, even if you have to totally reset and like start from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one sort of key aspect as well, which I think a lot of people don't really think about too much, and this kind of relates, and I could take back to my first day at the personal training course. So I sat in there, and there was a group of 6 of us that started this course. So we all sat in there, and the trainer started asking us questions, to get a bit of a feel of who we are, and we get to introduce ourselves to the group. And I was last, and there was 5 younger male and female new trainers that were in there, and the question was, why have you chosen to do this course? And majority of people are going, oh yeah, no, I thought it'd be really cool. Yeah, it just looks like a great job, looks like a fun job. And I couldn't help but just shake my head in disbelief. Like that's not what a personal trainer is all about. There's not one of these people that actually care about people. And if you can't give yourself to the athlete or the client, and you can't invest in them, and you can't show enough care, then you're probably not going to be very successful, to be honest. So I'm pretty sure one out of that group that actually finished the course, which is, it's pretty surprising. But, there's a lot of PTs that are out there who quit within the first 2 years. It's quite highlighted. And it's purely because of the emotional drain that clients can have on you. So I started as a personal trainer. Once I was qualified, I was getting some great clientele. And for the first 6 months or so, I was going home and I was absolutely so depressed, and I was so down every single night. And I just couldn't work out why, because I had the best job in the world. I was loving what I was doing. But I realized then, after talking to some people and going to get some counseling as well, that I was actually taking everyone's stress on board, and I was holding on to it. So I actually had to find a way to, so I had to find a way to deal with that and manage that, and try and close the door at a session, which is obviously quite hard to do. If you do, really do care about people. A lot of people go through a lot of drama in their lives, and to be able to shut the door at the end of that session is very powerful, but very important for a coach and a personal trainer, if they want to do it for a long period of time. That's for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, probably I want to hear a little bit, or I know our listeners want to hear a little bit about, the Maffetone Method and what that's about, because it is a counterintuitive to a lot of people, the whole idea of going slower to get faster.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I come from exactly the same background that most of us came from. The whole sort of go hard mentality, or the no pain, no gain mentality. I came from that. I spent 16 years as a kid up until mid-20s, just absolutely smashing myself with Aussie rules football. And, I was one of the fittest in the club, and, to be taken out of that and straight into Maffetone training was obviously a big slap in the face.
So you're getting off the freeway and you're on a side street going, 5K an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one thing that I was taught quite a lot is it was about discipline. So being disciplined, and this was a lot from, the ball sport team sort of atmosphere. You always had to be disciplined. So I was always quite good in that respect. And I found out that, you absolutely need to be disciplined if you want to get the most out of it. But what I found out, over the years of, not only training myself or being coached Math Method, but also starting to coach a lot of people, is that, well, firstly, there's a lot of misconceptions about math and how you can, get the results out of it. I think that I don't like to tread on other people's toes, because there's a lot of coaches that have a lot of different methodologies out there. But what I've found over the years is it's for a lot of people, it doesn't actually work if you're trying to do it too strict. So a lot of it is sort of based around, and you can relate this to a lot of, nutrition or diets and things out there, and basically anything in the world. A lot of things are based around an ideal world and an ideal way of living. But in reality, majority of people don't live that way. Majority of people have kids, or they have a full-time job, or they have stress in their lives. They have financial issues. There's a whole range of things here. They like to be social. They like to go out and do group runs and, So I guess over the years, I've fine-tuned my method, and it's probably quite different to what it used to be when I very first started. So it's all based on the MAF methodology. It's all based on the foundation of the MAF heart rate and using your heart rate. But there's nothing to say, there's nothing about, the actual set structure that you need to have. So I've had this chat with Phil Maffetone himself, and, he doesn't say to, you have to be MAF 100% of your training. You can have whatever structure you want. But as long as your MAF test is improving or your MAF pace is improving, then you're on the right track, whatever that means. So I've used a lot of different methods for a lot of people. So
can you explain to the listeners, just the basics of MAF and the Maffetone method and what it is? Yeah,
sure. So, firstly, I'm not great at scientific explanation, so I'll try and keep it nice and basic.
That's fine. Me either.
But yeah, so Phil's methodology is basically the whole 180 minus your age. And that's your kind of starting point. Now, there are a couple of sort of factors to take into account. If you've had some bad illness, we're not talking a flu, but something that's a little bit more severe than that, or you've had a significant injury that's kind of restricted you from training for a little while, or you just haven't been training consistently for the last couple of years, then you might play around with what that number looks like, whether it's subtracting 5, adding 5 to that. Now, with my personal methodology, so I'll set someone up with that 180 minus your age, give them a zone which is that number, but minus another 10, and you would kind of just want to stick around that zone. So what probably a lot of people find is, they try and stick that zone, and they're spending their sessions constantly speeding up and slowing down all the time.
Yeah.
And because they're right on that barrier, and they're trying to get it, as close to that barrier as they can, but every time they go over it, they're having to slow down. It just makes a really inconsistent and frustrating run or bike, whatever you're doing. So I find that if you can stick around that mid zone, then you make for a much more steady run or bike, whatever it is that you're doing. So I'll take an athlete, and assuming they're being consistent, I'll give them that same heart rate for the next 3, 4, or maybe even 5 years. So then they basically get to add 5 over 5 years, if that makes sense. So
yeah. So let's say like a 40-year-old athlete, 180 minus 40 is 140. So 140 would be their MAF number, and above that they're getting close, if not going into anaerobic. And you want them to stay like in that range of like 130 to 140.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it depends on what kind of session that you're working towards. So if you're really focused on an aerobic session where you're trying to build your aerobic system, that's the target of the session. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sticking around that 130 to 140 range if it's a 40-year-old. If you're looking at something that's a session, for example, where you're still trying to stay aerobic, so the goal of the session is to try and stay kind of aerobic, but also prepare yourself for the strength phase and then the speed phase that might come later on. Then that one, I like to give people an extra 5 beats to play with. So then for that 40-year-old, they might be looking at a range of sticking between 135 and 145. So they get a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of extra range, and a little bit of freedom to start working a tiny bit harder.
I see.
And what I find with that one is that it helps the athletes prepare their body for the harder runs that are going to come in. Because it's really important, and again, this is one of the misconceptions is you've got to stick at 180 minus your age all the way through, but that's absolutely not the case at all. Like, the speed work is extremely important. So you build your aerobic engine first. So you want to improve your body's ability to metabolize fat and work on that energy system throughout that first phase of your program. Into the second phase, you're leading into the strength phase. So you're starting to incorporate some tempo efforts, whether it's bike, run, swimming as well. Adjusting your gym workouts as well to create some extra stress on the body there and start building some strength, throwing in some hill repeats as long as they're not flat out efforts. And then that becomes a great stepping stone towards that final phase, which is your power phase. And that's where we start throwing in the speed work. But a lot of people, they try to combine everything all the time. So there's two types of people. There's people who will stick to that math all the way through, then not see the results because they're not throwing in that speed work and phasing their programs. And then there's the other people who try and do everything all the way through, and it just doesn't work like that. You've got to work on your energy system first and building that energy system, building the engine, and then you can start building the strength, and that'll start helping with your endurance and your stamina and starting to prepare yourself ready for that speed and power work, which you'll do a little bit closer to that race.
Yeah, I probably would naturally fall in the second category and try to do everything at once. Probably the same way I try to build a salad. Here's all the things I've ever put in a salad, and I'll put them all in the same one, and it turns out to taste like dog shit.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but it's very common though. There's a lot of things out there, and it's very hard for people that are just getting into it as well, and even new coaches as well, because there is so much stuff out there. There's so many social media pages and threads going out, and lots of articles, and lots of people with different opinions. And what I find is a lot of people just cherry pick from so many different things, and then they just become quite confused about what they actually should be doing. And then that's how they do end up in things, in areas like that, where they think they need to be doing everything to improve. But it's just not the case. Yeah, you've got to phase your program properly. And at the end of the day, like as I said before, if your math test is getting better, you're obviously on the right track. That's a great sign.
Oh, that's a nice, simple way to track the progress. I mean,
absolutely.
Your math test is improving, so you're getting better. So obviously what we're doing is working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why change something that's working? But at the same time, you still might be getting better and better and better, but you're still, getting closer to your race. So we still need to put a bit of speed work in there as well. But you wouldn't make obviously drastic changes, and it all depends on, what you're even training for. People might not even be training for something. They're just trying to get healthy and fit. So yeah, there's a lot of different, methods that I use within my method.
What are some of the advantages for like just an age group athlete to work with a coach? I mean, who's the person who would be ideal to work with a coach?
Oh, everyone. Absolutely everyone. Definitely. I'm a coach and I have a coach.
Yeah. Okay. Good point.
I had my coach, for my first coach, he was, Trev, he was looking after me for the first, 6 or so years. And then we got to the point where he wasn't really coaching. He was just trying to help me out in a way. And, he became quite busy with his work. So I sort of took the reins, and, I knew how to write a program. I knew how to train myself. I knew exactly what I should be doing. And I tried to do that for a couple of years, and I just wasn't able to do it. I wasn't able to do it strictly. And it all came back to accountability. Just having someone there was such a big difference to me. And, towards the back end of last year, I hooked up with Mark Allen and started working with Mark. And he's been great also for my coaching as well, and learning some new skills. And
that's cool.
And sort of fine tuning my coaching as well, and giving me some new ideas and stuff. So he's absolutely brilliant. I mean, who can you learn better off than Mark Allen himself?
Grip, man.
So he's been great to work with. He's, I told him when I sort of first chatted to him, and I said, I'm no frills, like I'm no stress. You're not going to have to do anything for me. All I just need you to do is have a program there, check in every now and then, and I'm good. And be there if I need to ask a question or something like that. But yeah, like I think that's the big one for me. I think everyone needs a coach for different reasons. For me, it was about that accountability, and I wouldn't really care, to be honest, if he wasn't even looking at what I was doing. He does. He checks in pretty much almost every day, which is good of him. But I think it's just having that program that's been written for you, and you go out there and you just follow it, and you tick it off. That's how I work the best. And I've been extremely consistent since.
It makes so much sense because, I mean, humans, we're hardwired. We're social animals. So the idea that having someone else check in on us on our progress and ask us if we aren't doing, what we said we're going to do, just that.
Yeah.
We're wired that way. So I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Mark said it as well, on a different podcast sometime. He was talking about, basketball teams have coaches, football teams have coaches. Everyone has coaches. Swim athletes, swimmers have coaches, but triathletes, like there's a lot of people and also runners that don't have coaches, and it doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons, there's having that structure, you got beginners coming in who obviously, and as we talked about before, cherry picking things and trying to combine everything together and not really having some sort of set structure to follow, and not knowing what they should be doing and what they should be achieving. I like to focus, on the technique. I mean, the technique is extremely important. That should be done, the start of your training block, the start of your season, so you can start building some good habits, try and get rid of some of those bad habits, and then you can build off those foundations that you set early on. So that's a big one, getting someone to look at your technique. I mean, who knows what we look like when we swim? We don't. We can't see ourselves point. When we're swimming. And it's the same with the run. I mean, quite often I'll run down busy streets, just to check out my reflection. But it's not an ego thing, I promise. It's
I got my swim coach to film me for a couple laps. And I asked him, I was like, did you tilt the camera? Because in this angle, it shows basically my toes dragging on the bottom of the pool.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that was not how I saw myself swimming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's the same with cycling and running. Like we don't really think about it too much when we first go out there to do it. So it's really important that you have like focus points. And yeah, as we just said, like you can't see yourself while you're doing it majority of the time. So to have someone there who can to sort of point out, hey, you're not flattening out your foot on that pedal stroke, or your cadence is pretty low in the session. What happened here? And ask those questions is really important as well. Someone to just bounce ideas off. Get that confirmation about what you're doing and if you're on the right track. As we talked about, the accountability, having someone who has experience as well. I think that's a good one. So, everyone has to start from somewhere. Everyone has to start from a starting point. Absolutely. That's athletes and coaches as well. But, the way that I've sort of spread myself out is, I don't focus on just elites, or I don't focus on just beginners. I like to work with a wide range of people, and I have done, and for a wider range of events as well, because what that does over a period of time, it builds this massive toolbox. And you might use something for a beginner that you might end up pulling out and using for one of your elite guys later on. Just a simple thing, just to bring things back to basics, and vice versa as well. So yeah, just that toolbox is really important. Not only the physical tools, so helping with people with technique, or just the simple methodology itself, but also the mental strategies as well, and also the compassionate side of stuff, and yeah, just the way that you deal with people is really important. Trying to work out basically, what makes them tick, and how you can keep them focused on what they're supposed to be focusing on. And I think probably the biggest one of all is, there's a lot of people on, those free training plans that you see online, and to be honest, they're just an absolute killer. And the reason being is that they're not personalized to the athlete. So, if you want to be successful, if you want to have a consistent training build, that needs to be considered and needs to be taken into account. There's a lot of things: your life, your work balance, your rest days, your family, all that stuff needs to be taken into account. Because if it's not, we're not living in that ideal world. We're living in the real world, and people need to remember that. So your training plan needs to be customized around those factors, to make sure that you keep good balance in every aspect of your life, because that's really important for your consistency, and also your stress levels as well. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that cop a bit of stick off their partners for the amount of time that they invest in their training. And again, that's another aspect as well. You should be sitting down with your partner and discussing, what's realistic and what you can both be happy with. And then work out a plan that sort of sets around that, those aspects. But obviously, the heart rate stuff is really important as well. And, setting up your heart rate zones, and not just your MAF heart rate, but also, your tempo zones and your lactate threshold, your zone 4, zone 5, that type of stuff. Your power zones on a bike, your pace zones while you're running, all that type of stuff. It all needs to be personalized if you want to get the most out of your training.
Yeah, I was thinking about, as you were talking, those free training plans. if you're giving it to two different people, say start out like swimming, 1,200 meters one day, and you're giving that to one person has a lot of experience swimming, and you're giving that to the same person who has no experience swimming. One of them's probably going to get tendonitis or just totally wreck themselves on like that first week of training. So you're right. It doesn't take into account any differences.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's another aspect too, which I'd like to bring up. There was a social media post that I did see. It was on a private forum, and it was this girl talking about that she got dropped by her coach. So this girl went out, started with this new coach, and the coach wrote her a program, and it was all based on TSS, so the training stress score. So basically, this had, and it's just one of the most ridiculous things that's out there at the moment, is it was all based around the estimated stress of each workout combining into that week. So this coach had based it only off these numbers that didn't really exist because there wasn't any data from this athlete to even suggest where she was physically at.
Okay.
So this athlete went out, started the first couple of days, and reported back to the coach and said, there's absolutely no way I can do these sessions. Like I'm buggered. Like I just cannot keep up with them. They're too hard. I can't get through it. And the coach comes back and says, well, you should be able to. Like, I mean, the stress score is pretty low. Like I gave it pretty manageable for you. Just go out and keep trying. And so she went back out, did another 1 or 2 days, reported back and said, no, I just can't do this. This has to change. And the coach ended up dropping her. I just could not believe it. I could not believe the story, because obviously the coach has not taken the moment just to talk with the athlete and work out where they're at, and that's one of the problems out there. There's a lot of data, there's a lot of numbers, and everyone's focused on data and numbers. And you as I said before, you've got to focus on real world. You've got to work with the athlete. You got to learn about them, and you've got to really understand where they're at. And that's why you need that personalization of your program.
Yeah. Well, I guess in that way, I'm blessed not to be skilled with numbers. A lot of triathletes I see that maybe we call them like the type A, who want to nail every single number. Like for those people who are still using Training Peaks, want to have green workouts the entire time. Maybe click their watch off at the exact second, it turns 1 hour.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Like do an extra lap, you're like, done.
Yeah, I must say I am guilty. And I know there's a few people out there too where they click off their Garmin, they stop it, but it'll come up on Strava and it's missing a couple of seconds, and it'll be like 20, 29, 38 or something like that on Strava. So they have to change it in their little program, make sure it's 30 exactly. I'm one of those people.
Yeah, nice. Well, you still have a ways to go before it turns into something crazy like obsessive compulsive disorder, but you're on the right track.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there. It's getting there. But we're on the right track. But at the same time, I have this rule with my athletes, right? And I probably don't tell them all this, but I tell the ones that need to know. And it's all based on consistency and sticking to your structure. So, I'll let athletes know that if they wake up one day and they're just not feeling it, like they're feeling stressed or they're feeling tired or they just don't feel like they can do that full session, I just say commit to 10 minutes. Just do 10 minutes.
That's brilliant. Usually, yes.
And basically what that does, it keeps your body on structure and to that routine that it usually knows. Because as soon as we go out of structure and as soon as we lose our routine, the body stresses out, and that's what we try to stop from happening. So I'm quite strict on sticking to structure. So I don't like when people swap their days around, because it ruins the whole set out of their week when you're trying to balance out the week between longer and harder sessions and things like that.
Oh man, I've probably given you like strokes when doing that the last few years. I remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember the comments like, "What are you doing, man? Again?"
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I like to make sure that people do is stick to the structure, but don't be afraid to cut your sessions short if you're just not feeling it. Like, don't be too obsessive compulsive about getting that exact number in every time. I'm more than happy for you to only do 10 minutes if you can't fit in 2 hours or 1 hour, you're just not feeling it. As long as you're stuck to your structure, that's exactly what the way that you should be doing it, I think.
That's smart. And I think I know that the best, like when I get to the pool in the morning and after the first, 500 or 600 yards or meters, my battery's still completely drained and I've gotten out of the pool. And, if you can if you can stomach the kick to your pride, man, it saved me from getting sick a bunch of times. Cause I know what it's like to cross over that line to do a workout, even when my body's telling me not to, and then I'm get sick, and then it just puts me farther back, and in my progression.
I think that's what's really great about the Math method is it teaches you to understand your body and listen to your body,
Yes.
and learn about your body, and also just train smarter and become more educated, and a smarter athlete. And that's really important. And Phil obviously promotes that all the time to listen to your body. And but yeah, obviously there are times where you probably do need to harden up a little bit, or potentially times where let's commit to 10 minutes, and then usually you get 10 minutes in and you start feeling really good again, and you end up
exactly
extending or just completing your session. But yeah, absolutely, like people need to listen to their body and learn to listen to their body. And you would have found using that, and many other listeners out there probably found that you spend a bit of time with this Math method, and without even looking at your watch or waiting for the little beat to go, you'll know exactly if you've gone one beat over your math zone, because you'll get to that point where you just understand your body and understand to listen to it so well, and you become so fine tuned, or
it's
in
a cool
tune with your
thing.
body,
Yeah, it's a cool thing when that happens. So here's a curveball. What's the weirdest pre-race or like pre-race dinner or pre-race meal you've had an athlete consume?
Oh God, that's a really tough one. I don't know if there's anything actually weird. I think there's just some people potentially overdo things sometimes, and there's maybe going out for a curry, or there's
wow.
Or going out and listening to the old school chain of thought of carb loading and smashing a whole
eating a bowl full of
pizza
pasta.
And pasta. And then waking up the next morning and feeling like crap. I can't think of anything like weird. I think a part of what I do is try and educate people as much as I can. And I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, and if people want more specifics around that, I'd obviously suggest that they go and talk to someone like that. But I just aim to try and make people a little bit more educated, and will actually just think about what they're doing and what kind of effects that it might have on them. So I don't usually get to see, or probably if they did have something terrible or weird, they probably wouldn't tell me anyway.
Yeah, nobody would confess that, man. I think the weirdest things, usually fish tacos for a while were my go-to, pre-race dinner. And then I think the weirdest one I might have done is like a peanut butter and pickle sandwich, which when you get out here, oh yeah, man, when you get out here, I'll make you one. And I want to record your face when you taste it.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast. I actually got in trouble anyway when good old social media. So when I sort of first started those first couple of years, I had this thing where I had to have a pepperoni pizza before a race. So I always had that each night. And then I think one night I actually posted on social media, and my coach saw it, and he had a bit of a blast at me. So I had to ditch the pizzas after that point.
He's like, "What are you doing? We work so hard, and you're eating a pizza."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the old school chain of thought I had.
So what's the plan for 2020 for Team Carlin and for yourself? What races do you have planned out, and what things is the team doing?
Yeah, so my goals are pretty. I don't mind throwing it out there that I do want to turn pro this year. That's I've been working towards that for a while, and I've had a bit of a rough trot, or a bit of a roller coaster, just all basically related to business. Just trying to keep. I guess I kind of did things a lot differently to a lot of other people. So, you see a lot of athletes out there. They do struggle from race to race, just trying to find sponsors all the time, and trying to scrounge up money and trying to live off prize money and things like that. But I think that can take away a lot of enjoyment from racing itself. So I always had this mentality or this idea that I could build a business, that I could still go and travel. I could work as a professional, or train and race as a professional, but have that financial backing as well of the business behind me, and then obviously have that ready to go once I'd retired from racing. So in doing that, I probably took on quite a lot, and I got involved with some charities, and president of the local tri club here, and I just really struggled to say no when I saw people in need. So I kind of screwed myself up there for a few years, but yeah, probably the last 12 months or so, I've kind of got myself back on track, and I'm feeling really good, and I'm seeing a lot of great results. And the racing, I'm always pretty consistent with the racing, but I kind of feel like, I'm ready to really sort of ramp it up this year. So I've got a couple of races coming up. I've got 70.3 Bang Sang, which is in Thailand in 2 weeks. So looking forward to getting over there. I finished second in my age group last year, 9th overall, but I was only about 24 seconds or so off first.
Oh, I know. I remember that.
Yeah, so I was pretty demoted with that. But hopefully I can go a little bit better this year, and use the first couple of 70.3s that I do this year to hopefully put something together for a application for a pro license. Just see how those races go, I guess, and that'll tell me, what the rest of the year looks like in terms of, what I do. For TC, I mean, we have, obviously, as we have athletes all around the world. There's a large group based here with that work really closely with me in Cairns, and first half of the year for most of those guys is all based around Ironman Cairns and 70.3 Cairns. And with the 2020 World Champs just almost on our doorstep across the river there at New Zealand, that's really popular around here, and everyone wants to get amongst that. So we've got a couple of athletes already qualified for that, who qualified back in Langkawi just late last year. And there's a whole bunch of them that are keen to get over there. So they're all training pretty hard at the moment, and a lot of them are getting out and choosing, whether it's interstate or overseas races. And there's obviously, yourself, you got races over there, and we've got guys over in the UK, and another guy in India who's training for something. So
that's crazy, man. I don't know how you keep up with like people from around the world like that. It blows my mind. It's pretty cool to hear India, Israel, UK, obviously Australia, the United States. It's insanity, man. It's like do you have anyone in Africa, or is that the only continent you don't have?
I don't think I have that continent yet.
All right, we'll work on that.
So if there's anyone there, sign up.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it has been great. Yeah, it's awesome. It's as I said before, the ability to train coach, lots of different people who have lots of different goals, whether it's marathons or half Ironmans or whatever. It really keeps it really interesting. Like you learn so much about working with different types of people, and I think as a coach, like you always have to be learning, and that's always my goal. I always have this thing that whether I'm thinking about my life or my career as an athlete or my coaching and my business, is I'm never content, and I never want to be content. Because to me, being content means you're happy and satisfied with the way things are, and you don't want to change anything. But that's not how I work. I like to always make sure I can improve, and I'm not afraid to try new things. And some things work and some things don't. But you won't ever improve if you don't take a leap of faith sometimes. So it is great to work with lots of different people, and I'm very fortunate that these days I sell out a couple of months beforehand. So to give I've got a couple of coaches that I've sort of taken on, and now I get to coach those coaches, which is really cool. Like that's just thrown in another element again, and you get to
that's like a meta level right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're building them up at the moment, building up their list as well. And they're both great athletes as well. They're fantastic. They've got a great attitude, and we're also working with some of the Chinese athletes and coaches over there. So in the future, potentially sort of later this year, depending if things obviously sort of get a bit more healthy and safe over in China, which I'm sure it will. We'll be heading over there as well, and working with some athletes there, and also working with some of the coaches there to help sort of build their skill set up as well.
That's exciting, man. So if we have listeners on this podcast who want to sign up to take on one of your coaches, do they just go to the Team Carling website?
Yeah, you can flick us a message on Facebook or Instagram, or even just head to the website teamcarling.com.au. I don't like to plug myself, but thanks for that, Mike.
Yeah, of course, man. It's been so fun, and I really appreciate what you bring to the sport. Just because you probably won't tell the story yourself, but we had an athlete in need over in the UK, and you flew out from Australia to the UK to run a race with somebody, who needed you to be there at the time. If that doesn't say the level of dedication you have to your athletes, I don't think anything will, because I don't know anyone in the world who do that. So to say you have a heart for your athletes is an understatement. So it's an honor to be on your team, Nick, and I appreciate you coming on the show. We'll make sure that everybody is able to find you on social media and find out, what you're doing before we go out. Any words of wisdom?
Oh, look, I'll just say, if anyone's a bit stuck with the whole math methodology or where their training is at the moment, and they just want a little bit of advice or something like that, hit me up and you can give out the details if you want, and be more than happy just to, maybe touch on some of the things that we touched on today. And, every now and then I get an opportunity to go through and help some people out on some of the social media sites who sort of have frustrations, I guess, with the math methodology, and I'll just give them just a couple of pointers and some new ideas about ways to approach it. So, if anyone wants to, if anyone needs some help and they're a bit stuck, obviously your listeners, I'd love to help them out. So, just contact me anytime. More than happy to give my 2 cents worth.
Well, everyone, check out the show notes for how to get in touch with Nick. And Nick, man, it's been fun having you on the show. So thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Alrighty, that concludes today's episode of the Age Groupies podcast with me, Lindsay Hyken, and my co-host, Mike Ergo. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hyken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us at agegroupies@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, as this really helps us get more exposure while we try to grow this little venture. And of course, if you have friends you think might like the show, please be sure to share it with them. But for now, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.